Hi guys, friends and gentlemen. Today I'm going to talk about the 7 years of Modi's rule in India, and I'm going to shed some light on how proven, how successful his tenure has been so far, and how he has fared. If I have to discuss the political card and the kinds of uh, achievements that he has been claiming to, and it goes without saying that his tenure has been really tempestuous, and it has been eventful in the sense that he has taken lots and lots of decisions, in fact hasty, thoughtless, reckless decisions, whimsically, and he has been taking leads, and he has been taking initiatives that have somewhat produced some tangible results in some sense, but by and large, if we assess or estimate his successful strides into economic domain or social domain or fiscal disciplining of the banking sector, and as far as judiciary, amendments and his policies internationally, and his steps of promoting India's foreign policy, showing the world as if India is can be seriously taken to be Vishwaguru, world leader, or the world champion in many respects. But these moves have taken a heavy beating, and so far he has been doing lots and lots of theatrical moves, in the sense that without much consultation with his fellow members or even his cabinet colleagues, forget about the opposition, who has always been shown the doorway out. In fact, opposition has always been a divided house in India, and since the government has been ruling with an iron fist, with the kind of thumping majority in the center, and its policy of deposing or dethroning even the democratically elected states one by one. So whichever states have withstood this shock, kind of jolt from the central government, have been in the forefront, and Bengal, Kerala, and some of the states, a couple of them being ruled by Congress and the others by leftist, or have been locking horns with the center, and it hasn't been a really good bonhomie, and the federal sector of the government has been under attack. There tends to be unitary in its status, because most of the things appear to be more centralized than decentralized, and Modi government, with Modi at his peak and at the head of the state, never allows people, because he's too towering, he's too domineering, he's too sometimes bossy over others, that people hardly take chances to even float their genuine grievances or suggest or recommend certain things to backtrack the wrong moves or the right moves. To begin with, I'm going to highlight some of the key strengths first that Modi government has been touting and flaunting as its success the last 7 years of its misrule or good governance. My video will be, an attempt to ascertain whether his tenure has been a pitfall, has been one of the darkest chapter in the history of Indian democracy, or he has been able to deliver some of the promises he made, because he came in 14 with lots of radiance and hopes and wild promises, as if he was the Moses as the Messiah. And in fact, we were fed up with the government of the time, and people really wanted to look for someone dynamic, charismatic, and a towering personality like Modi, and he rose to the occasion. No doubt his oratorial skill, his organizational capacities, his charisma, and he shot into fame within no time. And he formed good governance, cabinet ministers, and then he started throwing volleys of promises after promises, and started in fact raising the bar of the expectations of the people. And we started believing as if this guy has come as panacea for all the ills that our nation was afflicted with at the time. The economy wasn't in the good shape at the time, viewed from the opposition parties, because of the rising prices of petrol and gases and essential commodities, and the Modi government came with a wild and rosy picture of giving the best kind of Ram Raj, so to say, where the things are going to change drastically and dramatically and democratically, and sabka saath and sabka vikas. I mean, each of us will prosper in unison, and he is going to take care of all the communities together without any sort of discrimination, distinction on the basis of caste, color, creed, or religious or political affiliations. So he went on a spree of announcement after announcement, without bothering to look at the exchequer, the real strength of our economy, the kind of support, financial support or packages that were needed to fulfill these promises. And then he wanted India to take a transitioning step, at a leap forward towards 21st century, and he started promising that he's going to turn this ill-conceived, prosperous economy into a $5 trillion economy. And for a couple of years, we started believing as if each one of Indian poor people is going to be pocketing at least 15 lakhs to begin with. That never happened, because the kind of people who were absconding with lots and lots of defaults, banking frauds and all, he promised that he's going to bring all of them back to the book, and they all will be behind the bars, because he is not going to spare a single criminal or any offensive, whether it's financial or criminal or political or social. So he started his first yojana, that's called Jan Dhan Yojana. Jan for the people, and Dhan is the kind of wealth that will be created. So more than 15 crore bank accounts were opened, and that was, ironically, with the zero balance, because people were not even aware of how the banking worked. They were quite illiterate people and downtrodden. They haven't ever visited or even dreamt of opening an account in the bank. So over to 10 crore rupee debit card issued. Now the banks went wild with zero bank balance in the accounts, and those were empty sham bank accounts with no real capital generation. And there was a life cover also, and there was a promise of the pension. So of course the bank accounts were opened, but they were never active, and in fact most of those bank account holders, they've defaulted. And banking, as is a sector that works in pure benefit and pure loss and profit, and it never worked out. Now moving on to the next big thing that he has initiated, that's his Swachh Bharat, that means Clean India campaign. It's a kind of mission that he promised that he's going to bring about total sanitation by 2019. So he promised to build crores of houses, and then he also promised of affording for every commoner total sanitation by creating bathrooms for the public toilets. Then he moved on to a very ambitious project that's called Cooking Gas Now under Direct Cash Benefit Transfer Scheme, with potential saving of 5 billion annually in subsidies. Now he wanted the rich people to forego his subsidies, and their subsidies, and encourage them to sacrifice the subsidies so that the poor could be given these gas cylinders under subsidized, heavily subsidized prices. And he also diesel prices. Went on deregulated diesel prices. Now the scene has already changed. I'm talking about the moves, initiation, at the outset, the kind of moves that he took, and what was the resultant impact of it. So what Modi, as a savior of the nation, as a messiah who's going to transform the whole of the nation to a leading nation of the world and $5 trillion economy and all that. So he started such ambitious program that would never materialize because of the ill-conceived and expedited kind of approach to the exchequer burden of Indian economy. There's a foreign equity in rail infrastructure allowed without limit. This is the fourth thing that he wanted all the foreign companies, corporates, to come and invest, and he wanted to start up projects on millions of projects. In fact, it was too wild an imagination that could only have been conceived in the wildest dream, in fact. So foreign equity cap in defense raised to 49%. That means even in the defense sector, that's a very confidential secret sector, any government thinks twice before allowing foreign investors to, but he went on to raise it to 49%. 74% in case of technology transfer. That means if you have the technology and you're going to offer it to India for self-defense and mechanism, even up to 74% of the technology transfer can be done. So he went on purchasing 36 Rafale fighters being bought, and that was a bit exorbitant at the price of it, because even indigenously built fighter crafts could have done better than what these Rafale fighters being bought, because they needed know-how, they needed expertise, and the fleet took some time to reach, and then maintenance costs were very high because they all fly by wire and dust-free atmosphere, and they're made for certain climatic conditions. So he, of course, cleared very long pending purchases placed. Foreign equity cap in insurance pension sectors reduced to 49%. I'm going to quickly summarize some of the bold steps that he took, and then I will try to assess to what extent these moves really resulted in dividends, it resulted in the right kind of futuristic environment for further investment, and how it persuaded or dissuaded from the foreign investors coming to India. Like, I remember when Samsung happily invested in Gujarat, but I don't know how, what is the resultant outcome of it. So he gave a clear note for IPOs and FPOs by banks to raise funds as long as government equity remains 52% and over. And that means around 50% of the investment was, it was disinvestment, to the extent that half of the asset will go to the foreign investors. So then he went on for certain tax elevations and tax benefits for real estate investment. He also announced 100 smart city projects. Now the thing is that he could have conceived of turning certain cities into Wi-Fi assisted and high class and a bullet train run transportation and all that, but realizing those dream cities in such heavily populated with poor sanitations and that could be far from reality. So he around $130 billion proposed spending railway over 5 years on schemes including high-speed trains. Now it's even after 7 years of his announcement of this kind of projects, we don't see even the basic railways improving upon its basic infrastructure. And no new rail lines, no high-speed trains. In fact, the prices of the fare on a train fare has been rocketing, and in fact poor people have been already struggling for being a commuter, and they have been paying exorbitantly. Now it's even more than before. Now, pan-India goods and services regime, he wanted to have Make in India, and everything has to be indigenously built, and he touted as if India is going to be a world factory like China, is going to live behind China as one of the greatest and the largest economy. Of course, it was projected as if India was going to be an Asian giant, and it was probably going to leave behind China within a decade or so, because the growth engine of India was so robust that it was going to fetch around 7.5 to 8.5% of GDP, and it was doing fantastically well. Although Manmohan Singh, as an economist, as a prime minister, could have been, I can understand that he was very reticent and always a puppet kind of prime minister who was listening to Sonia Gandhi's diktat, and he was like a accidental prime minister, chosen one. But even in silence, he was able to deliver lots and lots of promises, and he has been a very successful prime minister compared to, if you have to judge him the basis of the economic growth that India achieved during his regime. So despite 7 years of tweaking and toying with the ideas of giving a fillip to Made in India and search growth engines and double engines, government and state government, central government, and a very it's a mighty government at the center, and it's like unstifled horse. Never to be reined in, because there's no opposition and there's no fourth state questioning on the moves of the Modi government. So he touched almost every area, and he left it half bred, half cooked. In fact, there was an impasse in mining sector, and the passage new bill of regulation. He brought about new regulations to almost every key sector, mining, like coal mines and copper mines and steel sectors, and he went on selling PSUs, public sector units, and he never shied away from offering the bidding to the largest bidder, and he went to the extent of privatizing airports and maybe the essential, like a defense. You can very well understand that if defense can be for sale and can be for investment from the foreigners, then think of the airports and all. They're already managed by, partly managed by, and there are so many conglomerates vying for having the larger chunk of the cake. So successful auctions of telecom spectrum for mobile telephone and broadband were also left to for bidding, and there were companies like Jio and Airtel and all. They all, but the lion's share went to Jio because probably they are the largest bidder, and they are the largest service provider, and they have edge and hegemony and probably a tacit support of the ruling government. So the launch of Make in India or Digital India, I can see that India is getting digitized on a daily basis, because even the commoners and those who are hardly digitally literate, they are bound to use their Paytm and wallet and Google Pay and all that, thanks to this COVID pandemic, that it has facilitated the usage of all digital payment gateways. And the good thing is that we don't have to pay anything extra on like Google Pay and RuPay and all those things. To begin with the digital payment, every payment would cost you something additional, and that would be the hidden costs that we have to bear with each transaction. So in fact, Make in India or Digital India or Skill India, there are three slogans that I have been hearing for so long now, that everything has to be made in India. Now, this is called self-reliance and sustenance and Atmanirbhar. Atmanirbhar in the sense that we aren't going to look forward to or depend or rely heavily on outsiders for any kind of essential commodities or our basic infrastructure or know-how or any technology to run. But unfortunately, the largest mobile company is not from India. The largest car maker is not from India. The largest airplane maker is not from India. So we still have to make giant strides into these areas where we can really claim also to be self-reliant in the true sense. Of course, digital, because India being a house of a billion plus population, has to be a vying a spot for all the companies all around the world, because they see is an opportunity for the biggest kind of investment. So anyone would be willing to invest, provided we provide them in the security and the kind of ease of business. We call it business ease. Platforms has to be convenient. So Skill India initiative is focused on defense and electronics, primarily to create jobs. Now, Modi government knew that the government is not going to garner much support from the youths by offering them real jobs or job opportunities, because there are no jobs. It's a real crunch in the job sector. So he started floating, that you be the owner of your own startup. And then people started laughing, and once he happened to remark that pakora, you even, go to for, small stalls selling, eateries outside, and you can be proud of having a small business of your own. You can employ people actually, and you will be, like an entrepreneur and a sort of, a team leader, and you can create more jobs for others, not only for yourselves. Oh, it sounds very bright. It's a brilliant idea, but we need to start. Any startup requires a lot of investment, a lot of expertise, and the ease of the governmental support in one sense or the other. Mudra Bank launched with rupees 20,000 crore corpus to external loans between 50,000 and 10 lakh to small entrepreneurs. So the government offering that if you are going to start your own business, whether it's small scale or large scale or a medium scale, the government is ready to help for softer loans in longer terms with lots of prospects, like around 10 lakhs up to 50,000 and 10 lakh. It's called soft loans. So of course they were announcement only, but this money never reached those hands of those who really want to invest in their small scale business ventures. Commencement disinvestment program in public sector companies. So he started disinvestment everywhere, not only in the defense, but all sectors, all primary sectors. and he wanted to take hasty decision making, so he disbanded various ministerial groups. That means he created more cabinet ministers. Maybe it's a state, or maybe it's cabinet, or maybe I mean he created lots of avenues for people to head the department, to have more people for faster, I mean it's kind of like of cutting the red tapeism and bureaucratic rigmarole. So he also adopted 14th Finance Commission recommendation on far-reaching changes in sharing of revenues between the center and the states. Now the crux of the problem of economy was the GST. I mean, he wanted to, for long, no government has been able to or dare to bring about, kind of unified taxation system, because, we have a federal setup and every state has its own taxations and maybe custom duties and local duties and all that. So altogether, the kind of taxation, whether it's income or the calculations and revenue accumulation, it gets tedious and complicated. So it was a right move of having one unified GST, and then the revenue has to be shared by the states according to the kind of revenue they generate. So that would have fostered center-state relations. But for a year or so, they weren't really sure what kind of arrangement would work for sharing this. So then he offered a single window scheme for various clearances to steel, coal, and power projects. Single window scheme means you don't have to run around the officers of the bureaucrats and go run after the babus. I mean, like those kind of subordinates in the officers who always go for bribery or dilly-dallying. So he cut short the red tapeism by a single window scheme. Of course, it was praiseworthy, but it didn't work out the way it was proposed to. So it's a price establishment of fund set up for agriculture community to check inflation. So agriculture communities also were brought under to check inflation. Warehouse infrastructure, then crores of rupees are spent on shelf life farm produce. Shelf life is like perishable items and granaries and the kind of crops. So they supported and. But they again brought into the farmers in trouble by bringing about the three that draconian laws. Those are the farm bills, and lakhs of farmers are still on the street clamoring for its withdrawal of those because they see as if this is a virtuous sale out of their land and their choices, the crops, and their subsidies and their MSP, minimum support price, to those big corporate houses. Actually, Modi government has been in favor of those crony capitalists, and in fact he has been actually promising to yield result to the commoners and the peasants and all. But what he has ended up with is that only those crony capitalists have been found to be having much of the dividends, the larger share of the Indian economy, its benefits, and they have been prospering even in this pandemic time. Reliance Industries and those kind of petrochemicals based, and they have been doing fantastic business, adding millions and millions of dollars. So what has actually happened, the ground reality is that Modi government has been really soft and has extended all kinds of support, tacit or explicit, implicit support in letting them grow from bigger to bigger, and at times come when half of the India's economy will rest in the hands of a couple of 5 people, those big houses. So there is a wide scale disenchantment, disillusionment, and the wide scale unemployment, scarcity, and the middle class people that are losing their livelihood. They're in a lurch, and they will hardly find because this pandemic has proved to be the last nail in the coffin, because Modi's all moves which backfired and have ended in catastrophic failure, and he has taken up such moves which proven to be lethal for the prosperity of our nation, and it hasn't really paid off in any sense. And I'm going to talk about some of the draconian and monumental mistakes that it has really committed. To start with is the demonetization. That was a blunder that any sensible government, with any iota of wisdom, couldn't have gone for. He took the entire nation for ransom overnight, and he brought the whole nation to a peril, bringing millions of people in the line for their own money, and nothing proved to be really commendable about that. That was an exercise in futility, and even now we're paying for that big, it was a criminal act on the part of the government too. I mean, it was a thoughtless, reckless act. Actually, it has taken up so many reckless acts that demonetization could be the first one that has led to this disaster and the backtracking of the economy. So, and then he took other initiatives, political. I'm not going to in nitty-gritties of those political moves, like removal of Article 370, then imposition of the Triple Talaq law just to woo some of the Muslim women, and so-called secular Muslim women. That also bill has been pending in the Rajya Sabha because of the lack of full support. But Modi government brought it as if it is savior of Muslim women, and they wanted really the Muslim women to be independent, and so it has not done any good to the Muslim women, but it has done a lot of harm, because they are at the beck and call and the mercy of their own in-laws, and the government is not going to provide security and safety and the kind of alimony that the women are divorcee or widow or kind of economic support that they would be willing for, they would be looking for from the government. So and there are like issue of minimum alternative tax. So I've simply browsed over some of the steps that Modi government has taken in the interest of the commoners, in the interest of the peasants, in the interest of the. But in fact, it has proven to be counterproductive in every sense. Now, when it comes to like imposition of the president rule in certain states, and then when it comes to the arbitrarily removing the government, democratic elected government, and not listening to the. So he has already periled this, federal structure of the Indian democratic system, because most of the states he cannot rule over. If there is an election, he goes on a campaign for either dislodging or trying to depose the democratically elected government one way or the other. The horse trading is rampant, and they don't feel shy, because they are hell-bent upon making India, as they have declared, as a Congress-free state. I mean, if the government has to work for the welfare of the entire nation, it has to go by the constitutional framework of India, which may be unitary in structure, but it's in reality it's in federal in the center. It tends to be unitary. Of course, central government has a larger say, has a larger number of decision-making process and bodies, and they always have an upper hand when it comes to taking major decisions regarding the like taxation or some of the other sectors, key sectors proposals and all. Now, some of the late decisions that he has taken, that's also it only speaks volumes about his intention and his dream project. Like Vista, the Parliamentary House, is called a vanity project simply because he wants to leave his name etched out in the annals, the historical annals of India's, and he says that it's not. It's a much needed need of the hour. Now, see, in this pandemic, when we're not able to vaccinate even, just 10% of the India's population under inoculation, and I'm not sure whether by the end of this year, as they have promised now, that they are going to vaccinate this billion plus people with paucity and infrastructural crisis in the vaccine making bodies, the vaccine making companies, and the serum institutes. And so they are inviting tenders and bidders from all across the world, and vaccine companies are, in fact, they cannot provide additional quotas or additional numbers of vaccine, because they already promised the people that countries, and they are in the pipeline, so their capacity to produce millions of vaccines at the rate that the world needs, because it's like a race. If you want to win the race, you have to win, go faster than the spread of the virus. Now we're coming to know that there are variants in India, and even India, is trying to resist some kind of, the infamy, notoriety is gained over the world about mishandling, mismanagement of this pandemic crisis, and it's not ready to accept because they don't listen to the scientific explanation. They go by thumping majority and beating the pots and pans and torch. And even we have concoctions being offered in Andhra Pradesh where people don't believe that this could be a disease that can be warded off by simply wording, simply some magical words, some sort of concoctions and some sort of and people are. So India has never, has not been taking this issue so seriously, and this pandemic has, pushed India so behind, far behind on the economic front and the social front, and you can see that million people might die of it, and it's a precarious, deplorable state. We are really, brought into and forced to. Even now, the government is not, really serious about providing the kind of, push that is needed for bringing inoculation to the doorsteps of the people. And of course, to begin with those who are the elderly people, like 10 crores, only 10%. I believe it's like not 20 crore people have been vaccinated. Those are frontline, include frontline workers, and since thousands of doctors have passed away because of the viral overload in the hospital, and they have been working overnight, 18 hours a day, and actually they are the soldiers in the front, and they don't get the kind of support that's needed for them to. So, and how long a human endurance can be tested. So it's the vaccine alone that's going to offer the panacea in the long run, because that's the immunity only can fight this disease in the long run. And the sooner the entire nation in jabbing is reached and reach the arms of every individual, and people are inoculated against we will be likely to overcome this afflictions, and at least we'll be in a safer zone, like some of the countries have been commendably achieving so far, like USA and Israel. And this is because of vaccination alone. There's nothing else has worked, and we have Modi government pushing for his pet project of seems to be more interested in getting his palace, which may not be much needed at this hour, and it can always be postponed sine die, because we are having a good parliament. But what I've come to know about this parliament is that BJP government, from Manohar Joshi and all those, they didn't believe, that they actually believed in the false, superstition that this parliament building looks like a zero, it is haunted. It's not in favor of it. It reflects of the Luthians and those who ruled over us. And India, since Modi is the savior of New India, and Modi is going to be remembered for the rest of the hundreds of millennials for doing that great job of breaking the shackles from Britishers, and India will be like a real Ramraj, where things will all be ours, and we will be Atmanirbhar, and we will call it. All buildings will be named after Hindu gods and goddesses, probably, or probably Indian mythical figures. That's what they believe, because many of the cabinet ministers, and some of them, they died during the building, and an occultist, he suggests that the problem lies with the building. So that day onwards, the BJP government has been relentlessly pursuing this move of having a new vista, a new Parliament House adjacent to. We may be needing a bigger palatial and more to accommodate larger number of cabinet members, but it can always be deferred for now. What is needed hour is to allocate most of the funds, because the kind of hoping amount that we are going to spend on this vista project is like 200 billion pound. 200 billion pounds, just imagine. Now that's a hoping amount for any struggling and developing nation where the economic growth has stalled and our GDP is reduced to 3.4 or 4. It's like and we go for Patel's statue spending thousands of crores, and which is simply towering and just eyeing us our precarious state. And I'm looking at the appalling state that India is reeling under. So I really expect the government to take right moves, and instead of it's already done so many blunders in the sense of Kumbh Mela and congregations of huge, and in the name of elections, and it has been warding and it has been trying to wash away and shrug away his shoulder from this basic responsibility of providing the essential healthcare services. And it has announced the Modi government Ayushman. That's an insurance kind of health infrastructure for each individual with a 5 lakh of premium insurance, and that has never been fulfilled. The kind of decrepit and dilapidated buildings, the hospitals we're housing in, we can very well imagine the kind of state of medical infrastructure that we have developed over the years, and over 50 to, it was like 75 years, and we're going to celebrate 50 years, and that's where the Modi government like to hoist his flag in the new building, a new palace actually. So it's okay to go for ambitious project when you can afford to, but when the nation needs more than wants to know where every penny, every rupee is going. Is it worth spending on such projects, expensive projects, or you are simply telling the people about Man Ki Baat, and you're not listening to the commerce, and billions of people are crying and the people are disease dying, and you are simply walking away, just dusting off your all the responsibility. So you've got to be more accountable. And the report card that I was trying to read, it talks of so many moves, but resultantly, consequently, and the net net gain, we call say NNP, net national gain, has not been really promising so far. So I hope that the scenario changes. We get to overcome this pandemic sooner or later. By the end of the year, we get jab. Our economy gets backtracked with new announcement, and even the center-state relationship improve, because Bengal and center has not been seeing eye to eye these days. So it's a need of the central government to be as a guardian of the constitution, and to promulgate the right kind of amendments and constitution's prerogatives in the true spirit. and make India strong, make India Atmanirbhar, make India, one of the leading nations of the world, Vishwaguru, and the world pharmacy. And of course, we are the world's biggest pharmacy, and we have been doing finest job, and with the millions of doctors worldwide, the biggest donor of technocrats and doctors all over the world, and the world knows it. So why not we claim to, reclaim our status as being one of the top nations in the world, and hopefully by the grace of God, India is going to retain its superiority, its hegemony, its leadership, its age-old cultural and traditional prowess, and our tangible, intangible heritages that we really feel proud of, with the coexistence for all minorities, with safety, security within the government. So we don't mind any government, government comes and goes, but the welfare of the nation, welfare of the commoners, welfare of the fraternity, welfare of the values and the constitutional proprieties, they're paramount, and they have to be saved at any cost. Thank you so much for listening, and let's hope that the rest of the 3 years of Modi governments are not squandered away in only trumpeting and just peddling promises, but they also are able to deliver the kind of promises they keep doing, and we come out of this quagmire, we'll come out of this pandemic, as well as the other afflictions. The nation is at peril. Let's hope for the best, and let's hope for the brightest future for all of us. Thank you so much. See you in the next video.